What we do here is
bringing Linux to you.
Hey guys, Max here with ECHETechs, and I'm going to give you a quick review and some highlights on Ubuntu 17.04, the latest release. Now to start this off, this version, this 17.04, is not an LTS version. If you need the latest LTS long-term support version, or if that's all you want to deal with, then you need to go to 16.04. Now the biggest change about 17.04 is that they will be moving from a swap partition to a swap file. Now this only affects people upgrading from the previous version to 17.04 with no swap partition or any swap enabled. And if you're not upgrading and you're doing a brand new install, then it'll affect you when you do a guided install with no logical volume management, or you do a manual install and you don't provide a swap partition. When you finish installing and you do either one of those, you will have a 2 GB swap file on your root directory. Now the default swapness is set to 60, so that means at 60% RAM you will start swapping files out of your RAM into your swap. Now if you are on an SSD, especially older SSDs, this isn't good because it'll actually wear your SSD out from excessive writes. So a good thing to change would be to change your swapness to maybe 10. Now if you'd like me to do a quick video, or if you need help with changing your swapness, then leave me a comment below or hit me up on social media and I'll see what I can do. Alright, here we are at my test rig. This has a fresh install of Ubuntu 17.04. Now I'm just going to show you a quick little, I'm just going to show you that they have added the swap file. Now I'm going to just show you the FS tab. So let's go now. Now if you look at the very bottom by my cursor, we got the swap file in the root directory named swap file. It has no mount point. It has no type, it has no options, it's just a swap, and that's it. If we exit out of here, we can check the swapness by typing in cat proc sys vm swapness. And that shows that our swapness is at 60. So at 40% RAM, that's when RAM will start swapping files out to make room. Now moving on, if we go into the files and we go to the root folder, you will see the swap file. Now that's where Ubuntu mounts the swap file. It's if you go into the properties, it is 2.1 gigs. So from a base install with no partitions or logical volume manager, Ubuntu will make a 2 GB swap file. Now say you want to hibernate, but you don't want to make a swap partition that's bigger than that's the same amount of your RAM or bigger. Now you can do that. You could do everything that Ubuntu already does, or you could just add on to your swap file. You could just resize that 2 gig swap file to a bigger swap file to handle your hibernation needs, if you need hibernation. But if not, I think it's a good little addition to not having swap at all. I think you should have a little bit of swap no matter what. Alright, so moving on, this latest release, 17.04, will not support 32-bit PowerPC CPU architecture. So, sorry PowerPC users, but yeah, not happening with this release. Moving on, the default DNS resolve will be moving to systemd resolve. Systemd seems to just be taking over more and more, which I personally think is a great thing. The kernel in this latest release will be moving to 4.10. And now the next biggest highlight I want to say is that Ubuntu is going to be supporting driverless printers. Now this includes any printer that is IPP everywhere and the Apple AirPrint printers, but also some PDF, PostScript, and PCL printers will also work with this new feature being added. I think that this feature is going to be bringing Linux printing to the next step, and we won't have to be fooling around in that printer menu just trying to get a simple printer to work. Now moving on to Ubuntu Desktop, basically just the GNOME software has been updated, the LibreOffice suite, but my next highlight is that Unity 8 is not shipping with this one. Well, it is, but it's not shipping as default. To get Unity 8, you will have to start another Unity 8 session. And if you guys haven't heard, they have stopped development on Unity 8, and they will be sunsetting Unity 7 by 18.04, the next LTS version. Now, what does this mean? This means that Ubuntu will not be focusing on Unity Desktop anymore, and that this version and 17.10 will be the last versions to be using Unity. Basically, what this means is that this version, 17.04 and 17.10, will be the last versions to use Unity desktop environment. Mark Shuttleworth on April 5th said that they will be moving back to the GNOME desktop environment, and GNOME will be the official desktop environment for Ubuntu. Now, what does that mean for Ubuntu GNOME? I don't know, and I'm pretty sure it's still up in the air at the moment. But what I think is that the Ubuntu GNOME project will either just get merged or disbanded. Merged as in Ubuntu might take some of the main core developers and bring them in, or disbanded, most likely disbanded, because the main flavor of Ubuntu is now going to be running GNOME. So unless Ubuntu GNOME project switches their guidelines to maybe doing like a KDE Neon version of Ubuntu GNOME, where you have the latest GNOME desktop and the latest GNOME software on Ubuntu, I don't see Ubuntu GNOME surviving after 18.04. Now moving on to the Ubuntu server, QEMU has been updated to 2.8, libvirt has been updated to 2.5. Both those have to deal with hypervising, and LXDE has been updated to 2.12. That is a container hypervisor, adding GPU pass-through, including NVIDIA CUDA Core pass-through. So that could help for building a bunch of render nodes, or just allowing anything that might need GPU pass-through and that you would have to use either on bare metal or a virtual machine. Now you could run that into a container instead. Moving on, DPDK is also updated to the latest release, along with OpenStack Okta. That's being updated as well to the latest release. So those are my highlights of Ubuntu 17.04. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you have any questions about any of the features or any changes that happened in this release, Why don't you guys leave a comment below and also tell me what you loved about this release. If you guys enjoyed this video, give me a thumbs up. If you didn't, you know what to do. Consider subscribing for more content like this, and I'll see you guys in the next one.